Are you ready for some math? Welcome to Math Class Online. Today we are going to solve equations with squares. Start off with something nice and simple. Okay, the x squared equals 64. We kind of went over this in class. We need to get x by itself, and right now x is being multiplied by itself. So how do we undo that? The way we talked about it in class is to take the square root of it. Because if we take the square root of x squared, we're going to end up with just x on this side. If you don't believe me, think about this. If x was, say, 3 squared, this is if x was equal to 3. 3 squared would equal 9. If I wanted to get back to x, I would take the square root of it and I would get right back to what x equals. That's what we did here. X squared is 3 squared, okay? Once you square it, it would become 9. You take the square root of it, you get back to x, okay? So, I'm not saying that x does equal 3 in this problem. In fact, I don't believe it does. But I'm just giving you an example of why when you use the radical sign to get x by itself when you have x squared. Okay, now you know how equations work. You can never do anything to one side of the equation without doing it to the other. So, if I do it to that side, I have to do it to this side. Okay? With me so far? Hope so. Now, here's the tricky part. When you take the square root of a variable that's being squared, you actually create a little bit of a problem. You need to understand that when you get rid of that square, you now have to account for two different numbers. What do I mean by that? I mean, if you're going to take the square root of 64, there are two numbers which when you multiply them by themselves will get you 64. One of them is positive and one of them is negative. If you don't believe me, wait until we get to the end and you'll see. Okay, so what is the square root of 64? Is it a perfect square? It is. The square root of 64 is 8, because 8 times 8 equals 64. So, our answer is actually positive and negative 8. So once again, when you take the square root of a variable, which is being squared, we have a variable right here. It's being squared. When I take the square root of it, and I take the square root of the other side, I have to account for all positive and all negative values. So this answer is both positive and negative 8. The reason being is if you take 8 and square it, 8 times 8, you get 64. Okay. What if you do negative 8 times negative 8? Does that equal 64 as well? Yep, because two negatives multiplied together equals a positive. So negative 8 times negative 8 will get you 64 as well. So the answer to the solution of x squared equals 64. If x was 8, 8 squared is 64. If x was negative 8, negative 8 squared is also 64. Please don't forget that. Whenever you take the square root of a variable which is being squared, you then have to account for the positive and negative values that variable could be. Because as soon as you square a number, whether it's positive or negative, it turns into a positive number. Okay? Let's go through another example. Y squared equals 35. Okay, again, I need to undo that square. And the way you undo something that you square is to take the square root of it. It's the opposite, it's actually the inverse operation to squaring something, is taking the square root of it. It's going backwards. Okay, so whatever I do to one side, oop, I have my magic pen, I don't want that. Whatever I do to one side of my equation, yeah, I have to do to the other side of my equation. Yeah. Take the square root of y, I get just y. It's the whole reason why I did it. Good. Now, again, issue. I took the square root of a variable which is being squared. I have to account for all positive values and all negative values, because both positive and negative anything squared will give me a positive number. Alright, so I know that this is going to be positive and negative 35. Alrighty? Now, question is can I take the square root of 35? In my head, can I do this? Is 35 a perfect square? It is not. 35 is not a perfect square, which means I need some sort of help from a calculator. If you're good at sort of mental math, you can see that 35 is going to be close to 36, and if I took the square root of 36, that would be 6. So I know it's going to be probably 5.9 something. But when we do these sorts of things, we're trying to solve, we're going to use the rounding rule that we have used for the entire year so far. We're going to try to round to the nearest hundredth place. So if I want to get this to the nearest hundredth place, I need a calculator. Luckily for me, I have something where I can click on and get a calculator. Boom. And look at that. I'm ready to calculate. I wanted to take the square root of 35, right? Yep, there it is. Alright, so I'm going to type in 35, take the square root of it. Look at that, 5.916. I knew it was going to be 5.9 something, and I swear to you guys, I did not cheat and look ahead. I'm doing all this as we speak. Okay, so 5.91 is what my answer is. 5.91607, whatever. I need to round this to the nearest hundredth. So 5.9, is that going to stay a 1 or is that going to go up to a 2? Will this 6 make it round up or stay the same? Hope you guys know your rounding by now. It should round up. So my answer is going to be about 5.92. Okay? So when I get back to my nice little page here, I'm going to say that y, and again, it's rounding, so I'm not going to say it's equal to, I'm going to say it's about. Best about sign I ever drew. Let's make that neater. What do you think? Because, you know, I could definitely make this neater. I could do better than this. Alright. I'll show you my artistic abilities on this thing. Alright. Let's go slower so I can write neater. Y. Look at that. Perfect. Yes! Oh, it's beautiful. Is equal to positive and negative. That's what that sign means. If you have not seen this sign before, consider yourself seen it. It is now in your memory banks forever. It is about positive and negative 5.92. Okay. And that's how you would solve something like that. Alright, we're going to do another quick example, and then I'm going to give you something to ponder. Ooh, look at that. I like this problem. Okay, 3a squared plus 5 equals 42. Alright, you start off doing this like you would do any other problem. You need to get the variable alone. First thing we got to do, we got to get rid of that 5. We do that by subtracting it from both sides. So we get 3a squared equals, subtract 5 from both sides. The 5 goes away here, and then we subtract 5 from 42. We're left with 37. Ooh, I made life not easy on me. Okay, we need to divide both sides by 3. Yes? So we're going to do a squared is equal to 37 thirds. Okay. And let's just actually, call that for the sake of ease 12.33. It's actually 12.3 with Repeton over it, repeating forever, but we can't take the square root of something like that. And there is a way to take a square root of this, but we're not going to get into it right now. So I need to get the a by itself. The way I do that, take that square root sign, take that radical. Alright, so I'm now left with a equals positive and negative square root of 12.33. Again, this already is being rounded, and I probably wouldn't give you a problem like this on a quiz or a test where you have to take the square root of like a repeating decimal. But I decided to make my life hard on me, so because I like a challenge. Okay, so we need to take that square root. Again, we're going to need a calculator, so I'm going to go to my trusty calculator website. Once it loads, there we go. 12.33, and I want to take the square root of it. 3.5114409. Okay, so I'm going to round this to the hundredth, which means I'm going to get 3.51. So I'm going to say that a, to get my little pen out here, a is not equal to, it's about, my other one was better, positive or negative 3.51. Okay? So I hope you understand the steps that we took. Remember, you can always rewind this and look at it again. I want you guys to try this one on your own. See if you can't get it. Let's see, was I nice to you? Yeah, the numbers don't end up to be fractions, so this one should be okay for you to try. And as for today, the end.